Hello guys, welcome back to Tricks and Codes. Today we are going to build a simple basic project using Spring Boot. Of course, we are using multiple tools as well to build the web application such as Spring Boot, IDE, MySQL for database, and as we are building the backend part of this project, we are using Postman. Don't get confused if you are new to all these things. I will try to cover everything in this video. So, if you are new to this channel and as a beginner you want to learn Spring Boot, please subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon so that you can get notified when the new video comes from our channel. So, let's start today's video. Today, we are actually going to build a note-taking app using Spring Boot and all other tools. I guess most of us had taken notes by using many other tools in our mobile. But today, let's just try to build that in our own way. Okay, let's start building the application. Firstly, go to any browser in your PC or laptop and search for Spring Initializer. Click the link which says Spring Initializer. Select the project type as Maven. And since we are using the Java language and it is set to default, so we don't need to change that. And if you come down, we can able to see the Spring Boot version as 3.1.4. Now I am changing the group ID as com.tricks and codes. And artifact ID as notes. Now it's time to add the dependencies. The first one we need to add is the Spring Web. And after that we need to add the Spring Data JPA. Since we are using MySQL database, we need to add the MySQL driver. We have successfully added the required dependencies. And after adding the dependencies, we need to click the generate button over here. And a zip file will be downloaded for us. Now go to downloads and extract the zip file which we have downloaded. Okay, we have successfully extracted this file. But to develop this project, we need an IDE, Integrated Development Environment. So in this video, I am using STS as my IDE. You can use various other tools as well, such as Eclipse, Visual Studio, and IntelliJ IDEA. But today, I am using the STS to develop the project. So let's open STS and start importing our project. Go to Files and select the Import button on the bottom. And here we can find many options to import our project. We need to go to Maven and select the existing Maven project over there. And here we need to browse for the project which we have extracted. So let's go to downloads and select the notes file. After selecting the project, we can able to see the pom.xml here. And then let's click the finish button and the project will start importing into our STS. The project takes several seconds to import into our STS, so that's why I have skipped the importing part. Okay, let's see what are the things were there in this project. The very bottom one we can see here is pom.xml. So this is the project object model file for our Maven project. So Maven uses this file to manage project dependencies. What do I mean by project dependencies? See, we can see under dependencies, we have several dependencies over here. The first one is Spring Boot Starter Data JPA and Spring Boot Starter Web dependency and MySQL connector. So these are the things which we have added previously to our project using the Spring Initializer. So by adding these dependencies, Maven can automatically have jar files of these dependencies over Maven dependencies. So here we can able to see Spring Boot starter web jar file, and somewhere else we can find the data JPA jar file here, and we can able to see the MySQL jar file as well. Yeah, here we can go. So these are all the jar files which we were needed to this project. And if you come a little bit up, we can see Tomcat. This is very special about this Spring Boot. So we don't need to download Tomcat server separately to run our application because this Spring Boot itself will give the embedded Tomcat server for faster development of the project. So we don't need to worry about the Tomcat service over here. Okay, the next one, the main thing which we gonna see is src slash main slash java. So here we are going to develop all our codes, like we can add classes, interfaces, and we can add all the things over here. And if you come down, we can find the resources over here. So the static and templates are mainly useful for to build HTML, CSS, and JavaScript using templates like Timeleaf. So if you see the below one over here, we can see application.properties file over here. So in this application.properties file, we can give all the configuration which we needed to build our application, like JPA configuration, database connectivity configuration, and etc. So these are the main components of the application we are going to work on. Okay, let's close all the files and let's start our project. So to start our project, we need to go to the main class of the project, which is nodes application.java file, because here we can able to see public static void main method over here. So using this main class, we can able to run our application. For that, I am giving the right click to the application and run as Spring Boot app. Okay, so what it is saying, application failed to start. If you want an embedded database, please put it in the class path. Okay, I got the point. Before we start our project, we need to configure to our database. For that, I'm opening the MySQL workbench. If you don't have the MySQL workbench or Spring Toolsuite, just go to YouTube and search for how to download MySQL and Spring Toolsuite on the YouTube. You can find many videos and open one of those and try to download on your own device. Okay, let's go and log into our MySQL workbench. So if you see here, we can able to see the port as 3306 and the username as root, and I am giving the password as root because I have given root as my password. Click OK. This is how the workbench looks. And if you come to schemas, we can able to see nodes and system. System is the default one which is given by the MySQL workbench, and the nodes is the database which I have created on my own. So if you are new to the MySQL workbench and if you want to create, I can help you by creating a sample one. So give the command create database and give the database name. I am giving the database name as tricks and quotes and give semicolon and give any name you want. It's doesn't matter what name you use for the database. So let's just try to run this command. See, we can able to see create database, tricks and quotes, and messages one row affected. But we are not able to see under schemas, right? So let's just refresh this. Okay, so here we go. This is the database which I have created using this command. Let's go to a Spring Tool suite and go to application.properties file and view the required configuration for the database connectivity. The first one we need is the URL. For that, type data source dot URL and give the URL as jdbc colon MySQL colon double slash localhost colon and the port which we have seen while logging to the MySQL workbench is 3306, and after that give slash, and after that we have to give the database name. Okay, we have given the URL. Then we need the username password of the database. So I am giving the data source dot username. I have given the root and the Spring dot data source dot password is also root. Okay, the first thing, you don't need to remember all these things because these are all just part of building the project. You don't need to remember all these things. If you want to configure the database and if you need the code for this, just go to Google and type for how to configure MySQL database using Spring Boot. The Google will give you all the required code to configure to the database, and after that you just need to modify the database name and the password and username for your database. That's it. That is very simple for you to just modify the details. And I am giving the Spring Boot data source dot driver class name as com.mysql. Okay, and then the JPA configuration. I will finish the code quicker and we can go for the next part. Spring dot JPA dot database platform is dot hibernate dot dialect dot MySQL dialect Spring dot jpa dot hibernate dot edl command. I'm giving it as update, and let's just save this file and let's go to notes application dot java file and just try to rerun our application. See, now the application has started successfully under the port 8080. So let's go to the web browser and try to access this port. I have already given the URL of this port, but I was not able to get the data. We are getting an error message. So, okay, let's just understand why this URL is useful for. Consider that I am a user and I have given this URL to the web browser. So, after giving this URL to the web browser, I need to get all the list of nodes which are available in this application. But I am not getting it. So, to get all the required details of the web page, we need to add some more classes to our project. Like, the thing is, when the user gives the URL, he needs to get some data, right? He don't want to get the error message. So for that, we need to create some classes. And to create some classes, we need to understand what type of classes we need to create. So here the thing is, when the user gives the URL over here, this will create a request and the request will goes to the controller. We need to create the class so that the user will have the access to this URL. So let's go and create the controller class for this project. So I am giving right click and creating the new class called node controller, because this is our nodes project, right? So I am giving it as node controller, and I am giving the annotation at the rate controller. By adding this annotation, now this class becomes a controller class. We need one more annotation for this class to accept the request from the user, and that is at the rate request mapping. And I am giving the nodes as my request path. Okay, we have successfully created all these things, but inside the class we need some more things like methods, constructors, and all those things. So for that, I am creating a new method called public string get all nodes, and I am returning a string called this is the page where all the list of nodes is available. Okay, so we need one more thing. See, basically the user is asking for the get request. You need to get all the nodes which are available in this project, right? So for that we need to give at the rate get mapping and giving the path as all nodes. All nodes. And save this, and we need to rerun the project. Remember, when we made any change to this application, any change to the code of this application, we need to save and we need to rerun the application one more time to reflect the changes to our application. So I'm just relaunching the Notes application by using this button over here. See, the project has restarted successfully. Now let's go to the browser and just give enter over here. See, we can able to see the output as this is the page where all the list of nodes is available. Okay, let's just zoom it for you. Yeah, here we go. You can able to see this page. This is page where all the list of nodes is available. Okay, this is fine, but I don't want this to display every time, right? Because like each and every time when I click this URL, I need to get the list of nodes. I don't need to get the output as this is the page where all the list of nodes is available. I don't want this simple text. I want the list of nodes. So for that, we need to follow certain process. We need to have some different layers to follow the process. So let's see what is the process we need to follow to build this application. The first one we need to have is a controller layer. So what is this controller layer? As we discussed initially, the controller layer is responsible to accept the request from the user. Then the request will move to the service layer to process the data and give us the output. Okay, don't get confused here. We will go and see one small example to get understand what is the process. Let's say I want to add two numbers, 3 plus 5. Uh, what the user will do, he will send this 3 plus 5 to the controller layer to get the output. But what this controller layer will do is, this will pass this data to the service layer to process and give the output. So here the service layer will have the business logic to add the two numbers, and after adding the two numbers it will give the output to the controller layer, and the controller layer will give the output to the user. So this is the process which we follows. But what if I have a database and there is some data kept over there, and we want to fetch that data from the database? For this we will have a DAO layer. So this layer will give us data from the database to the service layer. So this is the process which follows every time when the user gives the request. The user gives the request to the controller layer, and the controller layer will give the request to process the data to the service layer, and the service layer will fetch the data from the database using the DO layer and will give the output to the user. Okay, I think you all got some idea on how the layers works. So let's go and build our project. So as per the process, we are currently in the controller layer, and we can find the get request from the user. So the request will have to go to the service layer. For that, I am removing the text and giving node service dot get all nodes over here. Okay, now we are giving the request to this node service object to get all nodes. But we don't have node service class, right? How do we give the request? So for that, let's go and create a new class. Before that, I will create a new package called service layer nodes.service, and in this I will create a class called node service. So we have successfully created the node service class, and now we need to give add service annotation over the top of the class. So we are adding the add service annotation because the Spring wants to know, right, what is the service class and what is the controller class. To have the visibility to the Spring, we are giving the add thread service to this class. Okay, we'll move to the controller layer, and I will just quickly create a package to the controller class as well. Um, dot controller, and I am moving the node controller to the package controller. Controller. Okay, now the node controller has moved to the controller package, but we do have an error to this class. Let's add private service node service, and I will give an at the rate auto void annotation on the top of this variable. Okay, why we need this annotation? Because this annotation will create an object of this node service variable in the runtime, and still the error exists, right? We have created the node class, but we didn't have created this method, get all nodes, right? So to create this method, just click on the error message and we can able to see here, create method on the node service. Before that, where do we get the nodes from? From the database, right? And how do we represent the data from the database to our application? For that, we have certain process. We can represent that data using an entity or a model. So someone will call it as entity framework, and in MVC, it will call as model. So here I am creating another package called entity package, and I am creating a class nodes to represent the data. Okay, we have successfully created the node, but how do we represent this class as the data from the database? For that, we need to give @entity on the top of this class. By giving the @entity, now this class will becomes the representation of the data from the database. Okay, we have successfully created the nodes model class. But in this, we need the attributes to represent the data, right? This class doesn't support to have all the attributes from the database tables to the data, right? So for that, I am just giving the attributes such as ID. We need ID, right, for our nodes. So I am giving the ID, and I am having the title for the nodes. So I am giving the title attribute in the nodes class. And after that, the main thing which we need is the nodes, the content, right? So I am giving the nodes as the other attribute. Okay, we have successfully added the attributes. Let's just add getters and setters for this class. Just go to source and click generate setters and getters and select all and click generate button over here. This will create all the setters and getters which we required for this class. For the constructor, just right click and go to create constructor using fields and click generate. This will automatically generate an constructor for us. So let's just remove the super method over here and just add the constructor without fields as well. Okay, we have successfully added the setters and getters and the constructors for this class. But we have created this class for the representation of the data from the database, right? And that's why we have given the @entity annotation over here. But in the database, the data is being kept in the tables, right? And for each and every table, we do have a primary key, which is a unique value for that entire table. So to have that primary key on the database, we should give the representation of primary key for the one of the attributes for this class. So here I am taking ID as my primary key. So I am representing the ID as my primary key for this entire model class. So to declare a primary key, I am giving @ID annotation on the top of this attribute. So by giving this @ID, now this attribute becomes the primary key for the entire class, means for the entire table of the database. And I am giving @generated value on the top of the ID to have the auto increment feature enabled for this class. Because each and every time when I add new data to the database, the ID value should be increased. So that's why I am giving the generation type as identity. And here for the nodes attribute, we are giving a large amount of data, right? We are not giving a single line or a two-line nodes to our application. We are giving a n number of points or a n number of paragraphs to our nodes. So for that, I am configuring the nodes with the column definition as long text. And that's perfect. We have added all the required configuration to our model class. Now it's time to create a DOA layer. Before that, let's save this file and let's create a new package called DOA layer. So under DOA layer, I am creating a new interface called nodes repository, and I am adding an interface JPA repository. So this JPA repository is part of the Spring Boot data JPA. It simplifies our DOA layer to perform the CRUD operations. So what do I mean by CRUD operations? Basically, the CRUD means create, read, update and delete. So in this video, we are going to perform all these CRUD operations to our application using this JPA repository in a simple manner. Before that, we need to add an annotation called @repository to this interface to indicate that our class is a DOA layer. And if you can see here, we can see two parameters under JPA repository, T and ID. So T represents to the entity class which we need to perform the CRUD operations. So here we have declared the nodes as our entity class. So I am giving nodes as the entity class for this JPA repository. And here the ID represents the data type of the primary key value. So for our nodes entity app, we have given long as the data type for our primary key. And that's it. Let's save this file. And now we will go to the controller class and we will fix the error which we are receiving over there. So as I told previously, we didn't add the get all nodes method in the node service class. And let's go and add the get all nodes method under the service class. And here we can able to find create method get all nodes in the type node service. So let's just click this. This will automatically creates a method for us. And let's just save it without any modifications. And let's go and save the controller class as well. And now we need to restart our application to see what are all the changes happen to our database and our application. So let's restart our application. Okay, our application has restarted successfully. And now if we go to the database and we can able to see there is a table added for our nodes database, and that is nodes. And let's see what are all the columns are there in this table. See, we have ID, nodes and the title. And let's see what is the data kept over there in that table. And just click on select rows. This will automatically shows the data which we needed. See here, we don't have any data for this table. So let's quickly add some data over here. I'm adding the ID value as 1 and the nodes as this is my first nodes in this application. And I'm giving the nodes title as first nodes. And after that, just click on apply to reflect the changes for the table and click finish. And now let's just rerun this query once again. See, now we find some data on this table. And let's go and see whether this data is reflecting on the browser or not. Okay, let's just refresh this page. Okay, we are not able to see anything over here because we didn't add any code in the service layer to reflect the changes, right? And let's go and add the required changes which we required for the node service class to reflect the list of nodes on the front end of this application. Okay, we are currently under node service class. So let's just remove this command. And now, how can we fetch the data to our application? So for that, we need to add node repository variable over here. So I am adding node repository variable as node repository, and I am giving @auto void annotation to create an object for me at the runtime. So now it's time to get the list of nodes. Nodes repository dot find all. So this find all method will give us all the list of nodes which we required for our application. But we are having an error right here. So basically we are getting the list of nodes, but here we are returning the string. So we need to change the return type as well over here. So let's just change the return type. It's list of nodes. See, now the error is gone. And let's save this. And we need to change the return type in the controller class as well. So let's remove the string and let's add list nodes, list of nodes, and let's save this file. And now let's rerun our application. Okay, our application started successfully. And now let's go and view the web page. Let's refresh the page. See, now we are able to see the data over here. And where do we get this data from? From the database, right? So we have successfully created our application. But the thing is, we are just getting the data, but we are not able to send the data, or we are not able to update this data, right? So for that, we need to add some more methods to our service class and our controller class to reflect the changes which we required. So let's go and add the changes very quickly. Now the first thing we are going to add on this controller class is to send the data to the database. For that, we need to create one more method over here, public nodes and add nodes. So basically we are sending the nodes to this application. So we need to add the parameter nodes to this method. Okay. Okay. Now this method will return us the node service dot add nodes. And here we are passing the nodes as the parameter. And since we don't have the add nodes method and the service method, and I am just creating it quickly. So for that, I am clicking this button, create method, add nodes in the node service. See, we have created the add nodes method very quickly. So let's just remove these comments. And now we are getting the nodes right to the application. And after getting the nodes, we need to save that to our database. So for that, we need to return the basic statement called node repository dot save, and here we need to pass nodes, and that's it. Now the data is going to save into our database. And now let's go to the controller class and let's add some changes over there. For the add nodes, we are sending the data to the database. The user is not asking for the data, he is actually sending the data, he is actually posting the data to the application. So for that, we need to add at the rate post mapping annotation on the top of this method. And I am giving the path as add hyphen notes. And we need to add one more annotation to this method, which is at the rate request body. At the rate request body. And now let's save this class and let's just return our application. Okay, our application has started without getting an error. Now let's go to the web browser. And now we are not asking for the get request, right? We're asking for the post request. For that, this is not the correct URL. We need to change the URL as add notes. And let's give enter. Oh, okay, we are getting some error over there. It's 505 method not allowed. So here comes the big problem. We are now just able to get the request from the browser. We are not able to post the request to the browser. So to post, we need one more tool called Postman. Okay, this is how the Postman looks like. So if you don't know how to download the Postman on your machine, just go to YouTube and search for how to download Postman on the laptop or PC. So you can find many videos on the YouTube and find one of them and download on your machine. Okay, this is how the Postman looks like. And now we are going to add the put request, right? But before that, to check whether the Postman is working or not, I am just giving the get request for this Postman. So for that, I am clicking the plus button over here and giving the URL http colon slash double slash localhost colon 8080 slash nodes slash all nodes. So this is what our get request URL, right? And now just click the send button. Okay, perfect. We are getting our required data. But what if we need to send our data? We need to post our data into the application. So what we need to do? So for that, we need to just go to the get over here and let's just click the drop down menu. And here we can able to find the post option over here. After that, just change the URL to the add notes. And to post the notes to the application, just go to the body and select the option over here and just click the drop down menu and select the JSON format over here. And I'm just copying these details for my quick reference. And I'm just pasting over here. And here I'm changing I'm not giving the ID. So let's see what the database will do. And I am changing the title to the second notes. And now I'm just changing the text over here. This second. And now let's just send the post request. Okay, here we are able to see the data which we have sent right now. And here we can able to see the ID as 2. So this is because in the notes model class, we have given the generated value, right? So by this generated value, the application automatically increment the count of the ID value. So that's why we can able to see the ID as 2 over here. Okay, we have added this data successfully, but is it reflected to the database? So let's go to database and let's see whether the data is reflecting or not. Okay, for that, just rerun this query once again. See, we can able to see 2 rows over here. And the second one is the one which we have added recently. Okay, perfect. We are getting the data to the database as well. But what if I need to get the data by selecting or giving the ID value of the data? So is it possible to get the data like that? Okay, so let's just try that as well. So for that, let's go to the controller class and let's just add new method called public notes get notes get notes by id. And here we are telling that the method name as get notes by id, right? So for that we need to pass the parameter as long id on this method. And now we need to add the return statement for this method. Node service dot get notes by id and pass the id to this method as well. And now let's just create this method on the service class. Okay, the get notes by id method has created successfully. Now let's just remove these comments. And now it's time for us to get the single data from the database. So for that we need to write some code over here. So let's just remove the null and just add node repository dot find by id and pass the id over here. But we are seeing the error right here. So to remove the error dot or else we are just returning the null value if we don't find the value of the id in the database. So now let's just save this and let's go to the node controller class and let's add at the rate get mapping. And now here I am giving the url as node slash I am giving open parenthesis and under that I am passing some parameter called id. And now in nodes method we need to declare some, that is at the rate path variable. And let's just save this and let's just try to rerun our application. See, our application restarted successfully without any error. So let's go to the Postman and let's see whether our requirement is working or not. So we have given the path as node slash id, right? And the id I am giving is 1. And this time this is not the post request, this is the get request, right? So we need to change the type of the request as well. Let's go here and just change to the get type and click the send button. See, we are able to get the required nodes for our application. Okay, we are getting the data for 1. What if I given as 2? Okay, that's perfect. Our requirement is working perfectly. But what if I want to update the data? Like, see here my notes is, this is my second notes in this application. I don't want this text to be displayed. I want to display something else. I need to display some paragraph over here, or I need to display some more points. So how do we change our required data? So for that we need to write some more code in our application. So let's go to the nodes controller class and now let's add new method public nodes update nodes. And now here we require two parameters. One is the long id and the other one is the nodes. Okay, let's add the return statement for this method. Node service dot update nodes. Update nodes. And I am passing these two parameters. Nodes. And now let's just quickly create this method on the service class. Okay, the update nodes method is created successfully. And now let's remove these unwanted comments. And now let's add the required code for us. So basically we are updating the existing one. So for that we have ID field of the nodes which we need to change. So now let's just find the nodes which we require to change. So for that I am creating a new and I am naming the object as nodes2 and to find the existing nodes through an ID we have the method, right? We don't need to write extra code for that. So I'm just passing the get nodes by ID and I'm passing the parameter ID as well. Okay, we have successfully created the object and now we are updating this nodes object, right? So we are not updating the ID of this nodes2 object. So we are just updating the nodes dot set nodes and we are updating nodes dot get nodes of this method. Okay, that's perfect. And sometimes we do update the nodes title as well, right? So let's just set the title to the required title. So for that I'm giving the nodes 2 dot 2 dot set title as nodes dot get title. Okay, sorry, here we need to give it as nodes 2 and I'm changing it now. Okay, perfect. We have set the values to our required values, but we didn't save that. So let's go and save the nodes to update the nodes which we required. So for that I am just typing node repository nodes repository dot save and here we need to give the entity as nodes2 because we have set the values for the nodes2 only. If you give the entity as nodes, it will create the new row, means it will create a new data. It doesn't update the data. Instead, it will create a new data. So to avoid that, make sure you are giving the setted value of the nodes. So which is nodes2 and after that just return nodes2. That's it. And let's just save this service class and let's go to the controller class. And now here we are neither giving the post request nor giving the get request. We are giving the put request, which means the update request. So let's go and add the put mapping over here. And I am giving the path as node slash parenthesis id. And here we need to give the annotation as at the rate path variable. Okay, the long has gone and just give that long. And for the nodes, we need to give the request body at the rate request body. That's it. And let's just save the controller class as well. Okay, now let's rerun our application. Okay, our application got restarted and let's go to Postman and let's see how it works. Okay, so what data we can give here? So let's go to the application properties file and I am copying all this data and I am pasting under the notes. Oh, okay. Here we are getting some error, right? So let's just give the backspace and let's add slash n. So this slash n represents a new line. This automatically goes to the new line in which the data is reflected as per our requirement in the database. So let's just add the slash into the required data. Slash n, and here also slash n, and here also slash n, and here also slash n. But before that we need to give the backspace, and here also slash n. See, now the error has gone. And now let's just send this data to the application. For that, here we need to select the put option and we need to send the data. Okay, here we are getting the data as which we have given the data. But let's just go to the database and let's see how the data is stored. So let's just run this command. Okay, so if you see here, the data is saved as per our requirement. It is saved by adding the new line to the each of the code which we have given. That's awesome, right? So for the front end, you don't need to give like this. It will automatically consider that there is a slash n over the data which we have given. So it will automatically take. But while giving the data from the backend of the application, we need to mention slash n if we need a new line. If we need a new space, so if you need a tab space, we need to mention it as slash t. Okay, I think you got my point. And if you want to have two more lines, just add slash n and slash n over here. This will gives you two line gap for the data. Okay, that's perfect. We have added the updated nodes as well. But what if I need to delete these nodes? So how do I delete it? So for that, let's go to the application and let's see what are the required code we need. Let's go to the node controller app and let's add the method public string delete nodes. So to delete the nodes, we need to pass an ID for which the nodes we need to delete. So for that, let's pass the parameter long ID and just return node service dot delete nodes and just pass the ID into this method. Since we don't have the delete method under the node service, let's just quickly add that. Okay, we have added the delete method under the node service class. Let's remove the unwanted comments and let's just write the code to delete the nodes. So for that, I am writing nodes repository dot delete by ID and I am giving the ID. So by giving this command, the database will automatically remove the required row from the database. So after removing that, we need to pass some text, right? So I am passing it as deleted successfully. Okay, let's save this file. And under controller method, let's just add at the rate delete mapping on the top of the delete nodes. And for that, I am giving the path as node slash and the parameter ID. And since we have passed the ID under the path, And since we have passed the ID value under the path, we need to give @path param under the method. And let's just save this and let's just rerun our application. Okay, our application got started successfully. Let's go to Postman and let's see how the delete function works. So here I am giving the ID as 1 and I am changing the request method to delete. Let's just click the send button. See, we got the text deleted successfully. Let's give the get all list of nodes URL and change the method to get and just click the send button. Oh, okay, I have given the wrong URL. So I'm just removing these nodes and let's just resend the data. Okay, perfect. We got the data which we required and we can able to see only the second nodes. For the confirmation, let's go and check in the database as well. Let's rerun this command. See, in the database also we can able to see the second nodes only. We are not able to see the first nodes since we have deleted that one. So, okay, that's perfect, right? And since we have performed all the CRUD operations from the backend, we have completed this project. To see the development of the front end part of this project, you need to wait for my next video. So please subscribe to this channel and hit the bell icon to get notified when the new video comes from this channel. That's it for this video and I will see you guys in the next one. So that's it. Bye bye.